I told you the winter is over.
You did.
Told you.
I'm happy you're right.
1 or 2 cold days, that's it. That was all that was left. Might have 1 or 2 more, but that's it. It's over. Soon it'll get hot. You'll wish it was cool again. In the meantime, it's called spring. We can enjoy it.
Spring and fall. So it's new season.
Malka, is Malka here today? Malka. Here she is. And Hannah McGrath.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
And this is Liba, yeah? Where are you from, Liba?
Long Island.
Long Island. Good.
Yeah, pretty close.
Born there, grew up in Long Island. Okay.
All in
So
the same
I'm going
town.
to give you a job. Remind me to take my hat
Okay, will do.
before I leave. And this is Samantha, yes? Yes. Good morning. Okay, we're just winding up chapter 9. We zoomed through it. Except for a few lines where we stopped to explain in depth. Sharonel, got you down.
Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy to have you with us.
Circa's also here.
Pardon me?
Circa's also here.
Oh, wow. I just saw her yesterday. She said she was going to try and she did it. Good, wonderful. Where's my book? Hand me this. You have a book on the table, Tanya lessons. Thank you. One of your own. So in chapter 9, the Rebbe has outlined step by step the kinds of feelings of warmth, connection, flaming up into actual love, yearning, longing, to the exclusion of all other feelings, great love, and beyond that, even love of delights, which is that one's whole delight is only in the fact that you're connected to Hashem. And this is the focus of the center of your life, and that's where you are 24/7. Imagine. Well, the Alter Rebbe wouldn't write about it if he didn't experience it. He did experience it. And this is the experience of tzaddikim. So what's it doing in the book of the average person? The answer to that is that this is what the average person can achieve. When in moments of the climactic moments of prayer, the difference between him and the tzaddik is that the tzaddik stays there. Tzaddik is there all the time. So that any picture that you see of the Rebbe, that's why the Rebbe is always right there. Because that's where he is. Only the Rebbe, you have things that are revealed and things that are hidden. In the realms of the righteous, there are the hidden righteous people, the hidden tzaddikim, the ones that nobody knows about. Sometimes the hidden tzaddikim everybody knows about them, but what we know about them is nothing compared to what they really are. And they say about the Rebbe that he is the most hidden of all the hidden tzaddikim, even though we know he's the Rebbe. But his moment-to-moment connection to Hashem and service of Hashem in ways that we don't even imagine makes him the most hidden, because what we see is just it's like a ray of the sun compared to the sun itself. We see the Rebbe, we don't know what we're seeing. When I first came to Lubavitch, and I spent a month here in the month of Tishrei, and I went back to where I was living in England at the time, and one of the Hasidim there said, "You were by the Rebbe?" I said, "Yes." He said, "What did you see?" I didn't know what to answer. He said, "You saw a person who is perfectly in control of himself." Can you say that about yourself? No. That's what you saw. You saw a person who was connected to Hashem and totally connected to Hashem all the time. I quoted this statement the other day about Rabbi Yisroel of Rizhin. Rizhin is a town, I guess, in Russia or Ukraine. I'm not sure where. You could look it up in Google. He was a relative of the Rebbeim of Lubavitch. He was close with the Mittler Rebbe. They said about him, he didn't blink an eyelash, that it wasn't with a godly intention. So this is what's being described here, is a person who goes beyond the stage of having his heart filled with love, on flames, it's the fiery emotions of the tzaddik, souls on fire. Elie Wiesel wrote a book, Souls on Fire. This is what he's talking about here, is way beyond that. This is now quiet, like the love of Hashem, of a Kohen Gadol, the high priest serving in the temple of God in Yerushalayim, going into the Holy of Holies. Total bittul, self-abnegation, no sense of self whatsoever, bringing incense before Hashem, the most sublime of offerings, on behalf of the whole Jewish people. The love of delights. Abba b'tainugim. Tainug is delight. Page 146. Me'ein olam haba, a foretaste of the world to come, when godliness is revealed, and the world will just seem, we live in now, will just seem so strange, because in the world to come, godliness is revealed, and in the world where we are now, godliness is not revealed. It's hidden. For the world to exist, godliness has to be hidden. Because if godliness is revealed, there's no room for anything else. No place for anything else. So this delight, ha'aynik, page 146, hu b'moyach, this is perceived in the brain. Remember, your quality of chachma in the brain is like the tip of the lightning rod. That's where the lightning strikes. So when a concept that's higher than your intellect, how is it going to connect to you? It's going to connect with the tip of the lightning rod, intellectual lightning rod. The intellectual is the wrong word, with the lightning rod of the intellect, which is called chachma, which is a potential. The word chachma, we learned this in the earlier chapter, in the earlier classes, that chachma is a composite word made up of two little words, koyach ma. Koyach means a potential, ma means what. So chachma is not really anything substantial. Chachma means wisdom. This is the first quality of the intellect. It's not something substantial. It's a potential of something to exist. And therefore it's compared to a flash of lightning, because when you see a flash of lightning, as you look at it, it's gone. There's an afterglow. if you try and remember what that afterglow looked like, then you're already dealing with the next stage, which is Bina, which is development. What do you do with this inspiration? But the inspiration itself is like a flash of lightning. That's in Chokhmah. Chokhmah is a potential of a thing to exist. And that's where Einig is felt. That's where Einig touches base with the mind of man. This is the delight he translates here. Hamisani the Seichel, this is where is this to be found? In a person who himself takes delight, Ba'askalas Hashem, in ideas about God, and knowledge of these ideas. That means knowledge means connection. If you're not connected to an idea, it means you don't know it. You know, like the professor who's a chain smoker, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He has the ideas, but it's not integrated into his being. So we're talking about a person whose delight is conceiving ideas of godliness and knowing them. That means being connected to them. Knowledge is connection. Adam, the first man, knew Eve, and they begat children. That's the intimacy of knowledge. Kafi hasaga sichle, and this is commensurate or is in proportion to his IQ, his ability to understand something. And according to his capacity to receive ideas that are higher than his intellect. That's what it says here in these words. There's a lot to think about in what the Alter Rebbe writes here in every single term. And this is, we can compare this or source this to the spiritual sources of the soul. And we saw, and we've mentioned several times, good morning, Hannah, that just like every physical thing is made up of a combination of 4 elements, and here's Tova.
Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, Tova. 4 elements make up every physical thing. Like a tree. A tree has water. A lot of water in a tree. A tree has to drink. Dried up tree needs to be watered. Plant. It's made up of air. Cut open a tree and you'll see that there are pores. It's a porous substance. Wood is porous. Warmth, fire. There's fire in the makeup of the tree, and there's earth. And if you set the tree on fire, the fire in the wood disappears, the water evaporates, the air goes, and you're left with the earth. It's the 4th element, and that's the ashes. So that's the way it is in every physical thing. That's the way it is with us. You have water in you, like the world, 75% water. Everybody's got their drinks. There we go. We can't live without water. It says the worst death of all is to die of thirst. It says in the Talmud, the worst death. Warmth, you're almost 100 degrees, every one of you. 98.6, it's the normal temperature of a human being. That's hot. Air, breathe, constantly breathing. Earth, that's our physical flesh, the makeup of our bones. So we have these 4 elements, and they have a spiritual source. From spiritual levels, spiritual worlds, world of forms, world of Yetzirah, world of forms, world of creation, level of high angels and holy, most holy, righteous people. Their sources up there, but they're the fire and the air and the water and the earth on these levels is spiritually. So the love that we're talking about, this love of delights, well, love of delights is sourced in the element of water. Water is the source of all the things that we love. If I suggest you taking a vacation, half of you will say you want to go to a warm country where you have a beach, where you have an ocean, a resort. What's a resort without a swimming pool, without a beach? North coast of Australia, all these resort towns. East coast of America, Myrtle Beach, and so on. People from Mediterranean countries love to be near a beach. Water is the source of our pleasures, and in the godly soul, this is the source of delight. Is the water in the godly soul is the source of the feelings of delight in a godly idea. Okay, now when this spills over into the left side of the heart, which is the root, the place, the domicile of the animal soul. So the animal soul has its own set of desires, which are materialistic, physical desires. Lust, chocolate, and all kinds of sweet things, and sweet activities, and sweet indulgences, sweet expressions. They have this store here on Kingston Avenue. It's packed out every day. And when people, when Crown Heights fills up with tourists, you can't get in there. Sweet expressions. So all these sweet expressions are from the element of water in the animal soul. Now we have a very interesting scenario. We have the love sourced with apprehension of godliness, which is called oineg. Only it's not oineg like the food product, the Tanug company of producing all kinds of foods. It's oineg in Hashem, and this love is much more powerful than your love of sushi and ice cream. And it comes from the element of water in the godly soul. And if we put the two of them into the ring, and I don't mean this kind of ring, I mean like the boxing ring, the godly soul will prevail. So that's what it says. This is a foretaste of the world to come on page 146, third Hebrew lines. V'hu b'chinas hamayim. This is the element of water. V'zera ar zarua, which is connected with light. Sheb'kedushas nefesh halakis, in the godly soul. And what is its impact spiritually? That it will transform, totally overwhelm and prevail over the delights of the animal soul with a higher level delight, which is the delight in God. And then this causes a change in the animal soul, that the animal soul likes godly things more than pizza. That's how it goes. Just like a child in Kuntrus Umayan, you have the book downstairs. Kuntrus Umayan, something about folly, converting folly, something like that. They call it, it says in English. And the details there gives you examples. A child likes a lollipop, and he gets older, he likes more delicate pleasures. And he gets older, he likes pleasures that appeal more to his sensitivity. And he gets older, a person gets older, they can like music, and then the basic levels of music are very, animalistic, appealing to a person's desire to dance and to move. But there are higher forms of music. You go to a symphony orchestra, you don't dance, you appreciate. It's a much higher sense of pleasure. And once you've tasted it, you prefer it, because it doesn't compare. A string quartet just doesn't compare to a cheeseburger, which is forbidden al pi Torah. Meat and cheese together. So there are spiritual pleasures on a physical level that are much higher than materialistic pleasures on a purely physical level. And similarly, there are spiritual pleasures on the level of the godly soul, which are again much higher, much more refined, much more sensitive. And when you've tasted something higher, then you're not interested in things that are lower. There's an example is given of a kind of a parable of some wise scholars, Rabbonim, are going to a convention to discuss high and important issues. They're traveling together in a wagon. The wagon is being driven by a wagon driver, and pulling the wagon is a horse. And they're all making the same journey, the horse and the driver and the scholars. The horse is making the journey because at the end of the journey, it's going to get something to drink and hay and a place to rest. And the driver is making the journey so he'll get money. Why does he need money? He needs money so he can go buy a drink and a sandwich and a place to go to sleep at the inn. And the scholars are making the journey because they're going to a big convention to discuss godliness. And that's you. That's a parable for you. Because you are the horse and you are the driver, and this part of you is also the scholars. So a person should never be depressed and thinking, well, I'm just a horse. Everything I'm doing is just for physical reward, or everything I'm doing is just because the driver wants a salary, because I want honor, I want to get paid, I want to pay my bills. No, there's still part of you that wants to think about God.
Isn't the chapter of Tanya that we're learning right now, chapter 29, like in the Fidas?
Hernished.
Like yesterday's Tanya, today, like this week in chapter 29, isn't it talking kind of about like humbling yourself by comparing yourself to like an animal?
Yeah. That's the animal part of you. So you want to just, focus on that. Why? He says, why do you want to focus on that? And when? He says, you want to do that as a preparation for prayer, because you're limited by by being so accustomed to your animal responses. So you have to recognize it and say, I'm not interested in it, in order to release the godly soul that it can express itself. There are different ways of releasing the godly soul. The Musar movement is to physically castigate the soul, the body, to wear uncomfortable clothes, to fast, hide yourself any comforts, to sleep with a stone under your head, floor, and deprive yourself of sleep and so on. Chassidus, the Baal Shem Tov, Chassidus, it goes against this very much. He gives an example from the Torah of a person who sees his enemies donkey stumbling, falling under the heavy load on it. You have to help it. That donkey is your body. And beating it isn't going to help. That's not the derech to achieve connection to Hashem. So what we're getting at here is that by refocusing your interest and your approval of the things that you take delight in, that frees the godly soul to win over the animal soul, bring him in. So the animal soul, for his own reason, will come to the Chabad house because he likes the kugel. In the meantime, he's keeping Shabbos. That's better than hanging around in the dorm and wondering where the next high is going to come from. What's the next exciting thing that's going to happen? And then all these exciting things. There was an interview, they even published it, where a young man, a Baal Tshuva, asked the Rebbe about taking drugs and the spiritual experiences that you have when you take drugs. And the Rebbe said, that's not a derech because it doesn't last. You always come down from your high. Whereas if you connect with a godly idea, then you're connected, you stay connected. And it grows and builds. And there are ups and there are downs, but the downs are higher than the ups on the level of the animal soul. So what happens? This element of water in the godly soul is like light. It's like, wow, who turned on the lights? I have great pleasure from seeing this light. He saw the light. And that pleasure is so terrific. It's better than golf. And it transforms the element of water in the animal soul, so the animal soul also wants to experience this delight. Here we go. This is what we've been working for. Page 147. Kamesha Kosov Eitz Chaim. Who wrote Eitz Chaim? Review. Give you a hint. His name is in the title. Rabbi Chaim Vital, right. These righteous people, they do that all the time. They put their name in the title. The Orach Chaim, I'll give you a guess. What do you think his name really was? Famous author, commentator on the Torah. What was his name? Chaim. Who was Rabbi Chaim Vital? He was like the secretary. He was the only student allowed to write down the teachings of Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the Arizal. And all our understanding of Hasidus comes through him. So in the 50th gate, chapter 3, in the name of the Zohar, because it all comes from the Zohar, that's the first source book on all this stuff. That once the animal soul gets turned on to godly delights, then the inclinations, self-centered inclinations, disappear and become transformed into good inclinations. And the animal soul becomes a good soul, becomes a Yetzer Tov. You know that word Tov? Tov means light. The house was filled with light, and Hashem saw the light that it was Tov, it was good. Tova. How does this happen? Bahasir. Concomitant with that, at the same time as that, that's a nice word, eh? Concomitant. Bahasir, when a person takes off sloughs off all his desires for physical pleasure. Come on. You know, I was just at the most exquisite symphony, and you're talking to me about pizza. So therefore, all these physical pleasures are compared to dirty garments. What are the dirty garments? What are the garments of the soul? thought, speech, and action. So if your thoughts are dirty thoughts, if your words are dirty words, and your desires, your activities are dirty, so you're wearing dirty garments, like a plumber in working in the mud. Your clothes or your work clothes are all dirty. So therefore, you have to take off, and this becomes the enemy, the spiritual enemy in our service of God is our attraction and infatuation and addiction to physical pleasure. So you read about a chassid, a serious chassid. What do they say about him? Well, he stayed in our house, and the children noticed he never took seconds, and he never quite finished his plate. That's hard. That's hard. It's discipline, self-discipline and control, not to give in to the animal soul's desire for physical pleasure, and that enables the godly soul to have freer reign, because your desire for physical pleasures holds you down in the world of materialistic inclinations. Shem tainuge oilem hazeh, that is to say, taking pleasure from the things of this world, shumalubash vahem, and this person is wearing those garments. So when he takes these garments off, then the animal soul can become a second godly soul, like the pawn in the chess match, which gets to the end and becomes a queen. Sora Mora, speak about a queen. Here you are. Ho, ho, ho. Good timing. Page 147. Similarly, Shar Kol Hamidus, these are emotions. Love is an emotion in the heart. Sarah Milligan Baum, soon to be Baum, is not here today. She asked the big question last day. What's the difference between quantity and quality of your feelings and your appreciation of godliness? And the answer to that is, or one answer is, that the quantity could be a measure of the strength, like the quantity, the amount of charity that you give. It's a quantity. The amount of time that you devote to your studies or to your prayers, or the amount of time or concentration you devote to any part of your prayer, to any one sentence in your prayers, or the things that you might do to keep you focused on your prayers. We read about a great Rabbi Pape when he was 17 years old, but someone told him, before you say a blessing, think about God. And every time he would say a blessing, he would put his hand on his forehead and think for a second, and then he would say the blessing. I tell you the stories, I never know. It's like shooting an arrow in the air. You never know where it's going to land. Someone might hear a story like that and take it seriously and try and live like that. Okay, so that's quantity. How much? What's quality? Quality is harder to define. Quality is the feelings that you have when you do it, the love of what you're doing, or the emotions of fear, respect, and awe, excuse me, for the mitzvah that you're doing, or the Torah that you're learning. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay, so similarly, all that we've been talking about love, all levels of love, up to love of delights, it transforms the love of the animal soul. Similarly, all the feelings and emotions of the heart. So this is the arena of quality in what we do. The feelings that we bring to what we do, they are also all the other things. All the other feelings that we have are derivatives of love and fear, chesed and gevura. Love and fear. Two opposites. We want to be connected to God because we love him. We will want to do only godly things. And because we don't want to be cast off. We don't want to contaminate, pollute, dilute, or muddy up the purity of our thoughts, speech, and actions. So all the other emotions in the heart are derivatives of love and fear, and we want that all of these emotions should be focused and directed on Hashem. They should only be for Hashem. That means to say that in terms of speech, all our speech, which goes through our mouth, right? And our thoughts, which are in our brains, should be filled to overflowing with garments, not dirty garments, but garments of thoughts and garments of speech, which are rooted in the godly soul, focused on Hashem levadoi entirely. Here we go. We're finishing up. We're going to make a siyum. Page 148. Shehein machshavas Hashem. What are the thoughts that we want to have from the godly soul? Thoughts of Hashem. V'toirasei, thoughts of Torah. Liyei sichase kol hayom, talking about dibur. This should be my daily conversation, my constant conversation. How can anybody spend his whole day talking about Torah? Well, the Rebbe is very interesting. He seems to talk about Torah all the time. But he's very interesting, very witty, very perceptive. The Rebbe relates to everybody on a very down on their level. That's the amazing thing about the wisdom of the Rebbe, that he can speak with a young girl and she feels that he cares completely about her. And he can speak with a nuclear scientist and he's very thrilled to be able to talk with the Rebbe on his own terms. And the Rebbe is even a step ahead of him. And the third fact, we have thought, should be godly thoughts. Words should be godly words of Torah and prayer. And actions, our actions should be, the seat of our actions is in our hands, and our other 248 limbs should be involved in the 248 mitzvahs of the Torah. B'maisa, mitzvahs levad entirely. We're not interested in any other kinds of activities. So if you want to do other activities, you want to put a Torah spin on them. I'm going to work, I'm doing my profession in order to earn a living, in order to pay the bills, to have a kosher home, to raise my children, to Torah and mitzvahs, to pay the tuition, to give tzedakah, to help the poor and the needy. We do everything with a godly intention. It's all for the boss. We are just Hashem's servants. If he gives us money, he gives it to us for a purpose, that we should use it in his service. So our quality of action should be concentrated in doing mitzvahs. Shehu lavush hashlishi shel nefesh ha'elokis, which is the third garment. We want to get rid of our physical garments, right? We're not interested in going to Atlantic City or Las Vegas just to gamble. I remember when I was, finding out about Chabad, I came here to New York to see the Rebbe, and they sent me to a house of a certain family, and I spent Yontif meals, Shabbos and Yontif I ate with this family, and then their daughter got married and had a baby, and she was living in England. She was from England. The baby was born in England, and my host from Crown Heights came to be by the bris. In fact, he was sandik at the bris. So I felt very grateful to him for having hosted me over Yontif. I asked him what he liked to see London. I knew London quite well. Said, sure. So I took him out to show him the sights, whether I show him Buckingham Palace, London Bridge, That wasn't what he wanted. Well, those weren't the sites he was interested in. He wanted to see the Lubavitch yeshiva. He wanted to see the different Lubavitch minyanim, where they were and what it would. It was an eye-opener for me that the faculty of action was just focused on the things that the godly soul was interested in. Now, finally, this concludes the whole discussion of how the godly soul grows and expands and becomes more and more influential in our life till it converts the animal soul, to joining the team and becomes a helper, not on the same high level as the godly soul, but getting there, because the animal soul has its limitations in terms of its sensitivity. But on the other hand, the animal soul has something to contribute that the godly soul doesn't have, which is strength, physical strength. And in the future, that's why the animal soul will have a very, very great reward waiting for it, because if all the mitzvahs that we do are expressions of God, we did all those mitzvahs with our animal soul, and it deserves, like the horse deserves its hay, and the animal soul also deserves its reward. Without it, we couldn't do a single thing. If you didn't work hard and earn the money, you couldn't give to charity. Now, after having finished this whole discussion, like I've said a few times, it's like an ode to the godly soul. The animal soul, however, let's turn our attention now in the last lines of the chapter to the animal soul. Its desires are the exact opposite. It comes from Klippa, actually Klippas Noiga. It has the potential to be good, can be converted to good, but its basic desires are self-seeking, like any old animal, like any other animal, just for its own nourishment and physical pleasure. So that's the animal soul. It's exact opposite. It's a constant challenge, a constant down. Guess what? Last line of the chapter, L'toivas Adam, it's for your benefit. Why do you have to have an animal soul? You say, why do I need it? And the answer is because it's for your benefit, because this gives you the challenge that you can achieve something by winning the struggle. That you should overcome the inclinations of the animal soul, and you should conquer it. What is this mashal? This is a mashal, remember, is a parable that explains an idea. The idea is, the parable is as followed. A king hires a prostitute, the best in the kingdom, to seduce his son, the prince. And she says, Your Honor, Your Majesty, I can't do such a thing. I love the king. I love the family of the king. I don't want to mess up the life of this young man. I messed up enough lives so far, including my own. The king says, if you are my subject, you will listen to me. And so she has no choice. She has to go and do her best and work her wiles and get to meet this young fellow and make herself absolutely the most attractive, desirable companion that he could ever want, in order that he should run away from her like Yosef ran away from the wife of Potiphar. But her real desire, the real desire of this prostitute in the parable is that the prince should reject her. She does not want to succeed. At the same time as she outdoes herself because she has to listen to her king. Have a good day. Hi, Taylor. You're coming on for the next class, probably. Have a good day, everybody. My hat, it had 3 corners. Corners hat, my hat. Hat is not 3 corners. It would not be my hat.
Oh, thank you. I want to tell you that I won't be here next week, but I'm going to try my best to be on Zoom.
I'm going to be excited every time I see your name pop up.
Good Shabbos. I mean, do you think we can move this table a little bit? Sure. It's just like, I don't know, it feels different. Okay. Okay. I was just like so close to the wall. I felt cornered. Have a good day.